Welcome back to America's Newsroom. Thursday morning, Sandra Smith here.
Bill Hemmer here. Third hour begins now. So here's what we've learned thus far. We woke up today, new bomb scares again. You have police in New York City. You have police in Delaware now checking packages. First that were sent to the offices of Robert De Niro here in New York, and also the former Vice President Joe Biden in Delaware. Investigators now searching for the person or persons behind a growing number of these devices.
Live team coverage now. White House Chief Correspondent John Roberts joins us. But first, to Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. She's in Washington for us this morning as we learn more. Catherine?
Well, thanks, Sandra. Good morning. FBI officials say this investigation is now their highest priority, with the Bureau bringing a massive amount of resources to bear on it, including agents, analysts, and multiple labs, with the forensic analysis of the packages here in Quantico, Virginia. Law enforcement officials tell Fox News this morning 2 more packages were addressed to former Vice President Joe Biden. One went to Newcastle, Delaware, and a second to Wilmington. We are told these packages are similar to others intercepted in New York City, New York State, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. They are described to us as potential explosive devices that did not detonate. Secret Service also told Fox that the package did not reach Biden, also noting that the former vice president is no longer a Secret Service protectee. Investigations now unfolding in the last 72 hours in multiple jurisdictions on the East and West Coast, beginning Monday with the package to billionaire Democratic donor George Soros, followed by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former President Barack Obama, former CIA Director John Brennan, that was delivered to CNN, former Attorney General Eric Holder, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and then the 2 new packages identified this morning in New York and Delaware. In his first public comments after the bomb scare, Brennan told an audience last night in Texas that President Trump is to blame for the political climate.
This country was founded upon the foundation of freedom and liberty and freedom of speech. And if I and others are being targeted because we're speaking out and we're living up to our responsibilities as citizens, I think that, again, is a very unfortunate turn of events.
The White House press secretary has a different take.
When the person that is responsible for this is the person who made and created and put these suspicious packages in the hands and in the arms of innocent American citizens. That's the person responsible, and I find that disgraceful that that was one of the first statements, is that they made this and tried to put the blame on the president.
Meantime, a law enforcement official observed to Fox News that the packages were not low-key, but had a lot of red flags that would attract attention, from the excessive postage to misspelled return address of Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the computer-printed address labels that were overly large. The official also said it was not usual to see pipe bombs and envelopes. All of the devices failed to detonate, and the official said the cell phone and white powder in the CNN package seemed designed to simply amplify the panic. Sandra.
Catherine Herridge, thank you for all your reporting on that.
Meanwhile, President Trump using strong words last night at a rally denouncing a string of mail bombs. The president saying the threat of violence has no place in American society. This during a rally in Wisconsin. Roll it.
No nation can succeed that tolerates violence or the threat of violence as a method of political intimidation, coercion, or control. We all know that.
Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts has more now from the North Lawn. And John, good day to you.
Bill, good morning to you. The president certainly has had his share of hot political rhetoric in the past, but dialing it back a little bit in that rally for Republicans in the state of Wisconsin in the town of Mosinee. The president several times jokingly saying to the crowd, "Look how well I'm behaving," but denouncing the mailings as an act of political violence that is an attack on democracy itself. Also urging the country to come together to fight political violence and singling out the media for fueling some of the discord in the United States.
There is one way to settle our disagreements. It's called peacefully at the ballot box. The media also has a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility and constant negative and oftentimes false attacks and stories.
At an event in Austin, Texas yesterday, the former CIA Director John Brennan, who, as Catherine mentioned, was a target of a suspicious package sent to the CNN address, continued to criticize the president yesterday. Listen here.
Donald Trump has not helped to encourage the type of civil discourse and public engagement. And his rhetoric too frequently, I think, fuels these feelings and sentiments that now are bleeding over into potentially acts of violence.
The White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders this morning rejecting any notion that the president was in any way responsible for the mailings. Listen here.
There's a big difference between comments made and actions taken. The president is certainly not responsible for sending suspicious packages to someone, no more than Bernie Sanders was responsible for a supporter of his shooting up a Republican baseball field.
We may soon find out who is responsible. Many former investigators believe that a suspect will be identified and perhaps even taken into custody soon. We will likely hear more from the president on this. He's expected to get briefed on it during his daily briefing this morning, and he's got an event this afternoon, 2 p.m. on drug prices, where, Bill, I expect that he'll probably have some comments about that.
We'll see it then. Thank you. John Roberts from the North Lawn. Sandra? President
Trump condemning these acts of terror, calling for unity and civility on all sides. Brett Baer is the anchor of Special Report. Brett, good morning to you. The latest Fox News is able to confirm that Attorney General Jeff Sessions right now is being briefed on the latest on the package investigation by the FBI. We're all hoping we're going to learn a lot more soon, Brett.
And I think that that's a hope that's worth really thinking about today, because they're moving fast from everything we're being told. They have a lot of information. Obviously, none of these packages detonated. Explosive experts I've talked to say they were clearly designed to scare, because they were set up in a way that was the wires were on the outside. There was a clock attached to one. It was clumsy in the way it was constructed, and perhaps just designed to instill fear. And so hopefully they're going to get to the bottom of it. You're now at 10 packages, and obviously everybody's on high alert looking at mail rooms to see if anything matches what you're seeing on the screen.
What is the reaction so far, Brett? I mean, it's hard to believe it's only been about 24, 25 hours since we first learned of the first package that was sent. What has been the reaction so far in Washington to the president's response to all of this?
Well, I think he was pretty measured at first, you know, in the East Room ahead of that opioid event yesterday, and then you know, he made reference to it in his rally in Wisconsin last night about how good he was being. Obviously, those things are off the cuff, not really teleprompter driven, and you know, I think that there is a split here. There's a lot of people, especially on the Democratic side, who say that the president kind of has instilled this political environment and has made it much worse. And there's others on the Republican side who say, hey, listen, it goes both ways, and let's focus on the package creator and not just spreading blame to the president of the United States. So I think, you know, it splits. I will say that with the election this close, you know, there is a potential that it has blunted a little bit of the Republican the motivation, a lot of the push, just by the coverage yesterday, and we're only 11 days out.
Well, we continue to hear members of Congress speak out against these acts. Republican Senator Ted Cruz making it very clear where he stands. Listen.
This is a very divided time. It's a polarized time. Violence is never okay, and it doesn't matter where on the political spectrum it comes. I hope the terrorist is caught and is prosecuted and sent away to jail for a long, long time.
Meanwhile, we are reminded, Brett, that we are just days out now from midterm elections. And Karl Rove, in this piece in the Wall Street Journal, points out that every midterm election, to some degree, is about who occupies the Oval Office. He writes in this piece, with rare exceptions, FDR in 1934, Bill Clinton in 98, and George W. Bush in 2002, the party in power loses ground in the midterms, both in Congress and down the ballot. Voters almost always seek to provide a check on the incumbent party, prod it to deliver on its promises, or both. How are things shaping up, Brett?
Listen, the average is that the party in power loses in the first midterm. The average is like 35 to 37 seats. But the president's approval rating is ticking up. It's at the highest point it's ever been in the Real Clear Politics average of his approval rating. It was at the highest point in the Wall Street Journal NBC poll just last week. And his approval and how people perceive Donald Trump is a big part of this midterm. Obviously, there are local issues and there are races that are being run on personalities and what people are saying they'll get done. But the president factors into almost every race around the country, especially the big Senate races. And in those states that he won, 10 Democrats up for re-election, some of them are really underwater now after the Kavanaugh bump that happened a couple weeks ago.
Brett Baer, a busy morning in Washington and across the country. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
See you, Sandra.
Just learning this now, Fox News alert on the military and the southwestern border. Fox News confirming that hundreds of troops will be sent to the border. The latest on the caravan crisis as it slowly makes its way north through Mexico.
Plus a rash of bomb scares with more showing up today as investigators search for whomever sent the similarities between these devices and the clues they may have.
He's watching, he's waiting, he's trying to see what's going to be the reaction. And if he has more IEDs that he constructed, who's going to be next on the target list?
I think it was a great idea. You should stop.
15 past the hour now, watching stocks for an hour and 45 minutes, surging now, recovering some of yesterday's losses. Look at the big board, up 235. Yesterday it was whiplash. The Dow dropping more than 600 points at the close, wiping out gains for the year, a dip in tech shares, worries about corporate earnings in the future. Also the trade issue with China, all helping to pull back from yesterday.
But don't take away from today.
I'm not gonna. Because
here we go. Yeah. The Dow right now, if it were to close here, it's back positive for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
take that.
So
the NASDAQ yesterday was off 4%.
Big loss.
In one day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just extraordinary amount of trading right now. So we'll see where we go.
All right. Dow up 230.
Are you buying or what are you sell? What are you doing?
Neither one. Reporting the news. How about you? Okay. You're still a bull, right?
Yeah,
always, Hammer.
Yeah, you got it. Always. 15 past.
All right. Fox News alert on the nationwide search for a serial mail bomber as investigators check out new suspicious packages sent to Robert De Niro, the actor, and former Vice President Joe Biden after a string of similar devices were sent to CNN and top Democrats across the country yesterday. Joining us now, Dan Linsky, former superintendent and chief of Boston Police Department. He joins us now. Dan, thanks for your time this morning. You've obviously been watching this all play out. What are your thoughts this morning as we now learn 3 more devices were found this morning?
I've spoken to some folks who have been looking at the devices, and right now it appears that they would not have functioned as designed. Whether that was intentional or not is unclear. Is this individual did not have the capability to do it? Did they design it in such a way just to make it look like it was going to happen? That doesn't mean that they couldn't explode. You can always have static electricity and other means that could cause these devices to explode. So clearly somebody who's looking for attention, it's defined as a serial bomber. The fact that the teams are taking these devices with them as opposed to disrupting them in sight means that they feel they can handle them safely, and that'll give them the best physical evidence in which to follow up and identify the individual responsible for this.
Are you surprised that they haven't found this person or persons yet, based on all the evidence that is at hand?
Not yet. It takes time. You've got to go through it slowly. You got to have Secret Service is going to look at. Secret Service has the largest ink library in the world. They're going to be looking at where the ink came from on those envelopes. The FBI is going to be looking for any signatures on the bombs. We saw in the Austin case, very quickly they were able to determine that there were unique screw sets that ATF Post Blast found that were only utilized in garage door installations. They started to focus on the companies in the area that specialized in that and identify their employees. And as they were going through that list, they started to develop other information to try and put suspects together. It was when the suspect went and bought a Home Depot sign that they were able to identify his credit card and identify him as somebody who worked in the garage door industry and had a connection to to both. So they're going to piece these pieces of information together. Getting information out is helpful. We want to make sure mailrooms, people who could potentially be targeted here, have people on alert to make sure that they're looking for these devices in their mailrooms. And if they find one, to go to protocols, have 2 walls of separation between a device, 1 floor up, 1 floor down, until professionals can get there to render it safe.
When they do find the person responsible, which I don't know, do you think that could happen by end of day today? I mean, how soon do you think that might happen first?
It's possible. Law enforcement might have things that we don't know in the public realm. Those unique characters and typing on the envelope might be something they've seen in other cases where they've identified a subject. The person might have shed skin cells, might have left fingerprints. There could be signatures in the devices that they're tracking down as we speak. And it's between Secret Service, FBI, and the local authorities in New York and elsewhere, there's a lot of very talented investigators who will piece this together and put the pieces of the puzzle in place quickly and find this guy.
Would the penalty be, to go back to your initial point about the way these devices were built and what their actual intention was by whoever built them, would the penalty be the same? Obviously, nobody's been hurt. None of these went off. But based on what you just told us, would the penalty be the same for the person?
It certainly is. It terrorizes the individual it's intended for, terrorizes the community as a whole. So it's a terrorist act. Whatever their motivation was, maybe there's mitigating factors if they deliberately took efforts not to make it function. However, again, these things can function. I have a personal experience of one of the reasons I pinned a badge on my chest. A police officer who was my best friend's dad was examining a device that had fallen off a car that everyone thought was a hoax, and it wound up exploding and taking his life. So these are potentially concerning. The fact that it didn't function is good. If that was intentional, that's better. Or is it that the person just didn't lack the knowledge and expertise to do it the proper way?
Dan Linsky, thank you for lending your expertise to this and the information as well. Good to have you on the program this morning.
Thanks, Sandra.
Very interesting stuff. We'll see whether or not it pans out.
Yeah.
If these devices were designed not to explode, what's that tell you?
Interesting stuff.
Yep, the mystery goes deeper there. In the meantime, big meeting on the Hill. George Papadopoulos makes his first appearance in front of Congress. More on a closed-door meeting coming up shortly.
Since 1905, Joseph A. Bank has...
Fox News alert and new action on Capitol Hill linked to the investigation into the Russia probe. George Papadopoulos, the former Trump campaign advisor who was the first person to plead guilty in the case, now making his first appearance before House investigators. The GOP-led panel's looking into allegations of partisan bias at the DOJ. Papadopoulos' closed-door interview happening just a month after he was sentenced to 2 weeks in prison for lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russian intermediaries.
Another alert from New York out to Los Angeles. More suspicious packages found earlier today. A massive criminal investigation active and underway. And the latest targets, actor Robert De Niro here in New York City, former Vice President Joe Biden in the state of Delaware. Both high-profile critics of President Trump. I want to check with our colleague and friend Brian Kilmeade, Fox and Friends anchor, author of Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans, now out in paperback. How you doing, Brian? And good day to you. What are you hearing on radio? What are people talking about?
Well, I'll tell you what, for the most part, people are for those package bombs. On a side note, Bill, we used to have you here. You and Sandra used to do the show. Yeah, okay. This whole third hour is hurting our relationship, but we can still talk in the halls.
The issue is this. We're 9 to noon now, okay? So we're kind of locked out. We're actually competitors. All right, continue.
I guess so. But I had lunch, by the way, with George Papadopoulos on Tuesday. He was really looking forward to meeting on Thursday, and he's coming in to Fox and Friends tomorrow. He has a story to tell that could blow the lid off this entire thing and leave politics out of it. But in terms of what my callers are saying, a lot are concerned, a lot are pointing out that nothing was detonated, and there's a lot of people who feel as though when it's all said and done, there's some type of plot on the left to make Donald Trump look like the bad guy. So we start talking about Donald Trump's rhetoric and not about the caravan and not about Kavanaugh and not about the economy. So those are some. We took about 25 calls already anticipating coming on with you and Sandra. And that's just the pulse of the people. But since I've been on and since you've been on, as you know, we found out about 2 new packages, both intended for Joe Biden. I have yet to talk to anybody, and like you, I talked to Ron Hosko, who have said that these are bombs. But it just worries me that, again, if they were, the most innocent, like postal workers and couriers, would have been in the line of fire. It reminds me of the anthrax situation.
Yeah, very much so. You mentioned Papadopoulos. He was the #1 suspect, right, originally? He was sentenced to 14 days in jail. Hasn't served a day yet. Has he addressed that yet?
Oh, yeah. And
what does that mean? What does that say? What does that indicate about the investigation?
I think it says everything about the investigation. I think it says a lot with Congressman Jordan, with Mark Meadows, what Devin Nunes has been doing and pursuing, what Dan Bongino has been talking about. This 28-year-old was really was targeted possibly by a previous administration because of his links to Israel. He was helping Israel with newly discovered oil and setting it up with Greece. They did not like that. The word is there might be another FISA warrant, and it was on him.
Oh, that's
and they continued, and they continued to look at him, and then he pops up in Britain, writes a critical column against David Cameron, and next thing you know, people start coming up to him, needing to talk to him, wanting to have a few drinks with him. He
finds himself in the middle of all this. I'm really looking forward to that interview tomorrow. Quickly, on your book, it's in paperback. What more do we learn? Andrew Jackson?
Since we talked last time, Andrew Jackson's tomb has been defiled for the first time since his death prior to the Civil War. He is now in the line of fire. What I tried to do is remove Donald Trump, who's a fan of Andrew Jackson, and see what past presidents thought of him, because we're doing this war on history. So I have a look at what Reagan said, Teddy Roosevelt said, FDR said, what Truman said, and what Abraham Lincoln said about the impact of Jackson. That battlefield win was special. It made him the most famous man in America. It led him to become a two-term president. Why? Why are we attacking him now? Why are we on him off the 20? Why are we putting horrible phrases on his tomb? Those are the things I attack in the paperback this time.
We'll check it out. Thank you, Brian. Nice to see you, sir. Back to the radio you go.
Hey, Kimberly, you're welcome back anytime.
I can't wait, Sandra. I went your invitation. I'll see you in the hall.
Congrats.
See you, Brian.
Okay.
Well, the political reaction to the mail bomb attacks as more suspicious packages turn up today. What some Republicans are now saying. We're going to talk live to Congressman Michael McCall, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee.
Looking forward to that. Also, Fox News now confirming hundreds of U.S. troops will be sent to our southern border as thousands of migrants head north through Mexico. So we're live with details and what we're learning from the Pentagon on that coming up.
You knew it a long time ago, but when our country is assaulted by thousands and thousands of people marching, and they openly say, we're going to go into the country, we can't do that. We can't do that. Can't allow that.
Well, that was President Trump last night addressing the migrant caravan at a rally in Wisconsin. As we learned this morning, hundreds of U.S. troops will be heading to our southern border. William Lajeunesse is live in Mexico. William?
Okay, go. Well, what I was going to say is what you just saw here, these people, this is the hitchhiking, right? So they've been on the road roughly for about 5 or 6 hours. They started very early this morning. What they'll frequently do is flag down any kind of a truck or a pickup and try to get aboard like they are here and then go to the next town so you don't have to walk 30 or 40 miles a day. So it is true that the U.S. is going to now send some additional troops to the border. It's unclear whether or not their role will change. However, the U.S., as we both know, is now preparing for the inevitability of this situation. The group itself, it's going to splinter a little bit. Some will probably stay in Mexico. Some will jump the train a little ways up. And also you're going to have some going to McAllen, Texas, which is about, 1,045 miles away from where I am here. And we're also going to hit Tijuana, which is about 2,350 miles away. So these people, anybody here speak English? No English? English? Where are you going? Tijuana, Texas? Can you tell me? Texas. Yes. Tijuana, California. Tijuana. Okay. Can you tell me what you're going to say when you get there? No habla? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Most of the people here, Sandra and Bill, do not speak English. I think I've talked about 2 or 3 dozen who have. Some have, again, already gone over to Texas. These, as you know, the group is going to try to stay together on their way to Tijuana. What I will say is the U.S. is preparing, negotiating with Mexico to accomplish several things. Number one, they don't want all these people heading to the border, going to a very limited number of shelters in a place like Tijuana or McAllen because they don't have the capacity, and it would be like a humanitarian crisis process right there at the port of entry. They don't want that. The other thing they're concerned about, and I talked to Border Patrol yesterday, is they don't want people right up against the port of entry. And they saw those people jumping the fence down at the river. They're concerned that they'll storm it again, not for the safety, or rather not for the security of the U.S. They're not worried about that, but they are worried about the safety of these guys either falling down or having some kind of incident. Finally, they are talking about streamlining the asylum process, so it's a matter of hours or days, not months or years, to try to collapse that. And finally, will the U.S. be able to basically repatriate these people or deport them right to Mexico? That could become a problem for Mexico, but the U.S. doesn't want to take them in because then they have all these due process rights and can stay there for a much longer time. But as you said, there's another caravan behind this one. What the U.S. wants to do is try to send some kind of a message to these people. Do not continue to come. You need to stop. And only if they deport them will that be the message. Back to you.
Thank you for your reporting down there. William LaJeunesse, thank you.
I want to bring in Republican Congressman Michael McCall, chairs the House Homeland Security Committee, with me now. And, sir, we brought you in to talk about, well, these packages, whatever they are, bombs or similar bombs that have been from New York to Delaware now and Los Angeles as well. But I want to ask you about the report we're getting from the Pentagon. 800 active duty troops will head to the border. Apparently, they're engineers and doctors and lawyers. They'll join 2,100 National Guard troops down there. What do you think of that in this moving caravan?
Well, the president's been talking about sending the military down there for days. I'm glad that he's sending extra backup troops down there. I think the question is, will they be operating in a logistical support role or more as the military would function on the border? I think this demonstrates why we need to pass the Goodlatte-McCall bill to close legal loopholes, secure the border once and for all, and fix DACA. We wouldn't even be having to deal with this situation had not all the Democrats voted against that bill on the House floor. So now we have a precarious situation where we have to stop them before they touch base in the United States, as Bill LaJeunesse mentioned, the due process rights that will attach once they set foot in the United States. So now we have to work out an agreement with Mexico, in my judgment, where they would claim asylum in Mexico because, after all, they're away from any fear of persecution while they're in Mexico.
Okay, we are watching that. We're also watching the package story here. What is, you've been following the coverage. What is your take on what you think we need to be focused on at the moment?
You know, I dealt with this situation in my hometown of Austin during the Austin bombings. I think the difference, and that took about 18 days to find the culprit. I think the difference in this case is that none of these bombs, none of them have exploded. So we have all the materials of the bomb, possibly DNA evidence attached to them. We have the packages. There's a lot of forensic evidence that we have that we probably didn't have in the Austin case. So I predict the Joint Terrorism Task Force is working very expeditiously. I predict that we're going to find this suspect in the next several days.
Several days. Some are even predicting by the close of business today. We shall see. But
possibly.
Just to draft on the point you just made there about no explosions. Daniel Linsky, police chief, Boston, Massachusetts, said something similar 30 minutes ago. His sources are telling him, we don't have verification of this, he is saying that the packages were not designed to explode. What would that indicate?
A scare intimidation tactic, more of a bomb hoax. Now, as I understand, these bombs could explode, but unlike in the Austin bomber case, in Austin, the packages, when you open them up, they would explode. In this case, they're not. And I think that's a major distinction. And I know that theory has been kind of posited out there in the investigation world as a significant piece of evidence that they are maybe not designed to explode. I think that's very odd, maybe just to intimidate. So we'll see. Once we find this person, I think we'll know a lot more.
Okay, one last point on this. You mentioned the Austin bombing from last March. That individual changed his tactics over the course of a week and was watching television and watching media reports to see how folks like you and the local police reacted there. We don't know if this is over or if there's another wave on that, sir.
No, we don't. As long as he's still out there, the potential for more explosive devices to be used by couriers or mail. And let's not forget, we have a lot of video of couriers delivering packages. We have the postage stamps and markings, so we can determine where these packages came out of. There is a lot of evidence here to look at, and I know Secret Service and JTTF, FBI, New York Police Department, all doing a great job focusing in on this.
Well, it's Thursday. Let's hope you're right about a couple days or even less than that. Sir, thank you for your time. Michael McCall, they're live in Texas today. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
President Trump in Wisconsin last night trying to give a midterm boost to Republicans.
Also here are your Republican members of Congress. That's right, Duffy, we saw with Duffy. Sean Duffy.
He's talking about Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy getting some love at that rally last night. His thoughts on the final stretch as we head even closer to the midterms.
Do you know which investment?
So hang on, we're back in the green. We like that. Apple's up $4.50. Amazon's up $84. Whew. Roll Tide. That's a bad phrase around.
Yeah, don't say that around an LSU Tiger. Yeah, Senator Kennedy might hear you. Let me just tell you something. Even with this bounce back today, it's still not. It's not a pretty October month for U.S. stocks. The Dow right now, even with this bounce back, is on pace for its worst month since August 2015. There's a couple months left in the year.
I'm over here trying to be optimistic.
Yeah.
And you're negative Nelly over there.
Yeah, well,
I'm
just
trying to, keep up the optimism.
People love those little stats, but yeah, I mean, we'll enjoy this 350-point gain on the Dow. We'll take it.
Right on. Watch the close.
Any acts or threats of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself. Such conduct must be fiercely opposed and firmly prosecuted. We want all sides to come together in peace and harmony. We can do it. We can do it.
President Trump campaigning in the state of Wisconsin last night, calling for unity following a series of bombs mailed to prominent Democrats. My next guest was at that rally, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy. Congressman, good to see you this morning. How'd last night go?
Hey, Sandra, good to be with you as well. Listen, it was an awesome rally in central Wisconsin at the Mosinee Airport. You had a big Wausau contingency there. Listen, the president, as always, was on fire, but a little bit muted. He didn't want to go, too hard after Democrats after the bombs had been sent out yesterday and now today. But he was spot on, and we said, listen, we're going to call for civility in America. But I think when you look at what the president's saying, civility has to go both ways, right? I mean, you can't have Democrats attacking Republican candidates in California and Nevada and 2 in Minnesota, all in the month of October. And you have Kathy Griffin holding up a head of Donald Trump and now is back in the good graces of Hollywood. And, you have young people who wear a MAGA hat, a Make America Great Again hat, and they're afraid of getting beaten up. Or on college campuses, conservative speakers can't speak. And lo and behold, Democrats are asking for civility. I mean, Joe Biden was just out saying, I want to beat the hell out of Donald Trump. Or Hillary Clinton saying, we can't be civil anymore. This is out of control. If we're going to bring the temperature down, both sides have to say, listen, let's sheath the anger and the rough language, and let's talk about policy and politics in a far more toned down fashion. One of what frustrates me, I'm a member of Congress with Steve Scalise. And when the shooting happened on the baseball field, there was a Bernie Sanders volunteer. And Republicans said, you know what? Lo and behold, it's probably not Bernie Sanders who did it. It's probably not the fault of Democrats. You get some deranged people who are on the right or the left. We didn't try to throw hate for days with 24-hour, panels, talking about Democrats and how ridiculous they are. We kind of accepted it for what it is. Here in this situation with these bombs, we don't even know who did it. And the 24-hour news cycle is going on and on and on about how it's Donald Trump's fault. I think conservatives are so sick of being blamed for things that Democrats don't take credit for.
Chuck Schumer, ranking Democrat, he's sending out a statement via Twitter basically saying he doesn't buy it, the president's response. He wrote this: President Trump's words ring hollow until he reverses his statements that condone acts of violence. The White House was asked about this morning. Sarah Sanders was on Fox and Friends, and she responded to whether or not the president plans to change his tone. Watch.
The president is going to continue to point out contrasts of policy between Democrats and Republicans. People absolutely have a choice to make on what they believe in, and it couldn't be clearer. And we're going to see that happen in the next couple of weeks when the elections take place. And the president's going to continue to lay out that case. But at the same time, we're condemning violence and calling on all Americans to come together.
And of course, Sarah Sanders herself was one of the first to come out and condone those acts of violence immediately after this yesterday.
And this is someone who was chased out of a restaurant herself, Sarah Sanders, or Mitch McConnell chased out of a restaurant, Ted Cruz, who can't sit down with his wife because liberals are so unhinged they'll chase him out of a restaurant. So yeah, no, I think what the left wants here, Sandra, is they want Donald Trump to flog himself and then say, you know what, the liberal media, you can lie about me, you can tell mistruths about what I'm doing, try to present that to America, you just want me to be silent about it. Donald Trump's a fighter. And if you lie about him, you try to spin the story in an untruthful way, he's going to stand up, punch back, fight back, and tell the American people what he's actually doing. I was watching one of the liberal networks a couple days ago about what's happening on the border with the caravan coming north. I couldn't believe the presentation that was coming from the left and how untruthful it was. I think conservatives and independents and most Americans appreciate Donald Trump standing up for common sense, conservative American principles. And in Wisconsin, you mentioned Donald Trump was here for Scott Walker and Leah Vukmir. Scott Walker running for governor, Leah Vukmir running against Tammy Baldwin for the Senate. We're in a tight race. A lot of people write off our state, Sandra. And, you know, it's these kind of things that happen in liberal media.
The president certainly did not do that last night. Let's hear a little bit of that rally in Wisconsin.
These courageous Wisconsin patriots did not shed their blood, shed their sweat and tears so that we could sit at home while others tried to erase their legacy and destroy our proud American heritage. For the sake of our freedom and for the sake of our children, we are going to work, we are going to fight, and we are going to win, 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 and we are going to keep on winning like never before.
Only have a few seconds left, Congressman, but how's the president doing in your state?
He's doing well. His numbers are popping. Leah Vukmir was a state senator. She was yelled shame at her when they had the protest at the state capitol. She was spit on. She's about where Ron Johnson was at this time in the election 2 years ago. Ron Johnson won. We're surging in our state. She has a great chance of winning and being one of those upset seats that no one was watching in the Senate races across the country.
Congressman Sean Duffy, great to see you from Wisconsin. Thank you, sir.
You too, Sandra.
Outnumbered's next. Here's Melissa and Harris. Quick preview. It's popping again today. Ladies, how you doing? Good afternoon.
Great to see you, Bill. The information, as you say, is popping. It keeps coming in on those pipe bombs, with 3 new packages being investigated today. 2 of them were sent to former Vice President Joe Biden, 1 to actor and Trump critic Robert De Niro. The political blame game, well, it's in full effect. We still don't have all the facts, but it's in full effect. Whether we can calm the political climate at this point is the question.
And the president keeping his word on that migrant caravan moving toward the U.S. The Pentagon planning to send hundreds of troops to the border next week to prevent illegal crossings. And now Democrats criticized for staying silent on the issue, why they're doing that, and if it's a good move.
Yeah, we just got the alert of 700 to 800 of those troops moving. That plus the man in the middle to my left. He's already seated. He likes to be early.
Nice.
Hi, Bill.
Sounds like a hashtag. Thank you, ladies. See you in a moment. A big reward offered for information on the whereabouts of a missing Wisconsin teenager. Where is Jamie Kloss?
As the one who's a...
It has been 11 long days since a Wisconsin teenager was last seen alive. 13-year-old Jamie Kloss is her name, missing since her parents were found shot dead in their home. The FBI offering a $25,000 reward for information. Here's Matt Finn live in Barron, Wisconsin for more on this. Matt?
Bill, this morning, this entire region on edge, a killer or killers on the loose, happening all around us over the past couple of days. There have been intense searches in wooded areas and fields and swamps for 13-year-old Jamie Kloss. The Barron County Sheriff has organized expansive, very mapped out searches in which thousands of volunteers have showed up and have been instructed to walk single file looking for anything of evidentiary value, even a gun. You can only imagine how surreal and painful painful this is, as many people in this area are scouring their own properties for one of their own, a 13-year-old girl. We talked to some of these volunteers who say they are emotionally preparing for these searches by convincing themselves that they are looking for a clue and not a body. And we are also now hearing for the first time from Jamie's aunt.
To us in a different way.
Your dog Molly is waiting for you. She's sleeping in one of your sweatshirts and will only eat chicken. Grandpa needs new artwork on his fridge. Jamie, we need you here with us to fill that hole we have in our hearts. We all love you to the moon and back, and we will never stop looking for you.
This morning, Jamie Claus sits atop the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. Bill.
Thank you, Matt. Matt Finn, hoping and praying for the best yet again. Barron, Wisconsin. Thank you.
Well, the investigation into suspicious devices sent to